hello. Got in a little late. Got in just a little late because had to take my dog down. Mr. Milo, he wanted to have a pee. I've got Milo today, so he'll be making an appearance throughout today's podcast, I'm sure. Hope you guys are all doing really well out there. I am exhausted. I'm just exhausted. I'm exhausted all the time these days. Seems to be the case, right? If it's not one thing, it's another. There's always something getting in the way. And for me, it's ridiculous kerfuffles, like not getting paid enough at work, like literally. I sign up for work. I'm supposed to get paid a certain amount. They didn't pay me the amount I'm supposed to be paid. Big surprise. I think it's just a clerical error, so it'll resolve itself, but it doesn't feel good. Right? It doesn't feel good to be told, oh, hey, we're going to pay you 30% less than we agreed on. Oh, okay. Big surprise, right? We're in the middle of an absolute catastrophe of the American federal system ganging up against the striking rail workers. People are calling for like an illegal strike, and it's just I find that phrase to be weird. An illegal strike, as if we need to ask permission to have a strike. You know, as if that's the strangest thing in my view. Like when you take a look at the history of the labor movement, the history of the labor movement is full of what's called wildcat strikes and all this kind of stuff. And I find it very odd that we accept this term illegal strike because it implies that the owners of the society are the rightful rulers as well, which in my view is just, that's fascism, baby. Like Mussolini said it straight out. He said that fascism should be called corporatism because it is the merger of business and state. That's from Mussolini. And what are we seeing? What are we seeing here today? What's going on in the world today, right? We are seeing the merger of fascists. We're seeing the merger of the business class with the state. And we're all just supposed to accept that. Well, I don't. DM, how you doing, bud? Eric, good to see you, man. Happy December, John. I'm weeping today because we're rapidly entering a fascist, feudalistic hellhole, if not already. No, we're there, bud. Like, we're there. And I understand your grief. But I think no sense denying it. Like, we're there. We've been there for a long time. And we're just starting to see the consequences of it. You know, that initially they were sort of trying to pretend like it was all going to be smiles and happy faces and everything was going to be fine. But now we're getting into that phase where the negative consequences of it are beginning to rear their head. And the response is, well, what are you going to do about it? Like that's really what's going to start happening, is that the statement from the political system is going to be, is absolutely, what are you going to do about it? And the truth is that Americans and Canadians and Westerners generally are too weak. We're just very weak and sad people, right? We're just going to sit on the couch and we're just going to gripe and complain about it. Like no one's actually going to go do what needs to be done, which is to surround the halls of power. Like that's what needs to be done, and we're just not going to do that, right? We're going to bitch and moan about it and keep going to work. Like that's the truth of it, and keep accepting that, like, when people go having a quote unquote illegal strike, you know, like that's gonna matter. Eric, did you see that video I posted on Discord about CGTN? If not, you should love it. It's the burn of the century. You should play it. I'm simultaneously streaming on TikTok, and I think the TikTokers would completely not understand what's happening. But maybe I will play it. Like, I've seen that video before. It's basically just the Chinese completely dunking on the United States, like, which is easy to do these days. Like, it's not hard to dunk on the United States. The only reason people haven't done it in the past is because the U.S. would respond with bombs, right? Like, you don't want to stand up and say something on the public stage, right? If the response from the United States is just absolutely the destruction of your country, right? Same story though. It's dunking on the BBC. Like BBC is the mouthpiece of the empire, right? Anemone, absolutely good evening. It's your birthday month. Well, happy birthday to you. Crimean, with some just like straight up garbage. Yeah, I mean, we are all descending into a type of absurdism. Like, there's no two ways about it. The absurdism, yeah, I figured Crimean. Like, I mean, for God's sakes, like, that, it's the truth, though, right? Like, capitalism is just, like, at this point, it's not even trying to defend itself. That's the thing that I think is what's so telling, is that, like, it doesn't actually have a cogent argument anymore. It can't defend itself. The apologists who try to defend capitalism at this point sound like nightmare psychos. Like, straight up, just like outright outrageous nightmare psychopaths. And the people who are just like, oh yes, this is correct. I'm just like, I guess we are just going to descend into a straight up fascist society, right? And the loudest mouthpieces are going to be the ones who get the largest amount of funding, and the people with the money have proven time and time again, like, they're pedophiles and rapists and slavers. So of course it's an inevitability that they're going to try to make that the virtues of the society. They're going to try to make it so that we're supposed to look up to those people. That's where it's going to go. That eventually, like, Disney will start producing stuff that is explicitly fascist, and instead of just this implication of fascism that exists within the Marvel movies, it's going to be just overtly like, yeah, we went in there, we destroyed them, we took their stuff, they were weaker than us, we're the best, and that's essentially what's coming for our society. Because I mean, you can see this, it already sort of happens in weird little glimmering ways. Like when Clint Eastwood makes a movie about a psychopathic sniper who murders children in overseas countries, and glorifies it, right? Like, that's a type of fascist propaganda. That's us looking at our most ruthless, cruel, and vindictive psychos and saying, what a hero. Right? And it's who we are as a people. Yeah, what is your favorite achievement of communism? Mine would be their many firsts in space. Yeah, I bring that up a lot. I think it's their defeat of Nazism. Like, the defeat of Nazism is pretty big. Like, I find it very concerning that there are people walking around pretending as though communism and Nazism have parity with one another. That the quote unquote the communists are just as bad as the Nazis. Like, I think that's really, like, if you're a Nazi, that's a really, really big achievement if you can get people convinced of that. And and this idea has really permeated into the culture to the degree where it's like defanged our ire towards Nazis. So you can see a guy like Matt Walsh go around and get platformed on places like Joe Rogan's podcast and all this kind of stuff. And he's a Nazi. Like, he calls himself a theocratic fascist, sure, but he's a fucking Nazi. Like, when you call yourself a theocratic fascist, when you call yourself a fascist, that means that the implication is anything you have a problem with, anything you're talking about, that you're thinking to yourself, this is an issue that we need to resolve, your solution is to round people up and put them in concentration camps. That's the implication. If you're going to call yourself a fascist, right? Well, what's your solution? So if you make a movie called What is a Woman, and start talking about trans people, and start talking about grooming and how bad it is to be trans, and how they're all despicable, horrible people, and that we're not going to be able to find a peaceful solution. This is stuff Matt Walsh says, right? And for some reason we allow him to speak, because free speech, right? Because calling for the rounding up and putting in of minority groups into concentration camps, which you're doing if you're calling yourself a fascist, is apparently protected speech now. Like, these people, like, Nazis should not be permitted to be platformed. Like, they shouldn't. It's not a free speech issue, right? It's not an idea. It's not a thought that's worthy of discussion. someone is standing up and saying, hey, let's round these people up and put them in concentration camps, your response should be, hey, how about we put you in a prison cell and forget where you are? Like, straight up. Like, Nazis do not have rights. Nazis do not, our Nazi speech are not protected. And you can see the kind of glimmering of this that's happening against Kanye, where Kanye's getting, he's losing a lot of money doing what he's doing, right? Plowing head forward into this overt Nazi anti-Semitism that he's doing, right? And he's doing it to normalize it. And to give people a beacon to find fellow Nazis. And that's the danger of platforming Nazis in this idea of, it's protected free speech, right? Nazis are not interested in free speech. Nazis aren't interested in having a debate. They're not interested in finding a consensus with one another. That's not what they're there to do. That's not the conversation they're having. They are there explicitly to say, hi, I'm a Nazi, fellow Nazis. Come and find me on my blog. And organize with me, so that when we can get enough power to round people up, they can't stop us. That's what they're doing, right? That the goal of Nazis is to just gain enough power so that they cannot be stopped. They don't care about free speech. They don't care about your debate. They don't care about being right or wrong. They don't care. They're not interested in that. And America is well on the way. Well on the way. Yeah, Seraphim, it's amazing how fast America is going masked-off fascist. Yeah, they always were, right? Like, America's always been a fascist country. It's just always been successful at putting on a mask that had, like, it's like Britney Spears or the Disney Mouse or, like, any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, there's always some kind of mask for them to hide behind, some kind of smiling idea of glorious patriotism or something like this to mask the fascist. But they always were. And now the mask no longer holds. Like, the mask no longer holds. It looks like a psychopathic version of itself. It looks like Britney Spears, but today, right? Like, it just looks like a psycho. It's like the process of what happened to Michael Jackson, right? That Michael Jackson begins as like a good-looking black man and dies as like this ghastly ghoul, right? That's what capitalism does, and it's going to do it on the national stage. And eventually it'll just start being like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Right? Like, we're going to rape children on an island. Like, what are you going to do about it? Like, that's where it's coming, right? Ligon Dizzy, good to see you, man. A post on Lemongrad shows someone literally rooting the Empire now once they found out the rebels are based off the... Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, this is a Star Wars thing. Yeah. No, of course. Now that George Lucas came out and said explicitly that the rebels in Star Wars are based on the Viet Cong, right? And that the story is about the Vietnamese defeat of the American Empire. Now, of course, you're going to have people who are saying, oh, well, the Empire is right. And you watch. Like, Disney's not above. Like, they're going to make a story. And, like, they've kind of tried to do it with Darth Vader. They've kind of tried to do it by creating this, like, sympathetic psychopath, right? And you just watch. Like, it will invert. Eventually, the Empire will be considered the good guys. Eventually, they will be presented to us as if they're the good guys in the conversation. And we're all just supposed to believe that. We're all just supposed to watch this Star Wars movie where the theme has always been good conquering evil, and that the light side defeats the dark side, and that the rebels are always are fighting against this gigantic oppressive empire, and therefore they are good, right? That kind of thing. And it'll invert. And we're gonna watch a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars show where the Empire is just misunderstood, and that we can, of course we can use the dark side, right? Because that power, we just need to wield it responsibly. That's the kind of language they'll use, right? And It's absolutely going to happen. And when it's created, the creators will be like, we wanted to take a different take on the Star Wars universe, right? Create a darker, more gritty, more grown up, more adult, more realistic, right? Like, that's what they're going to say. And it's just going to be a way to cover the fact that they're trying to make the Nazis good. That's all it is. I know, I got a real, like, SpongeBob theme going on right now. I thought to myself, why not SpongeBob today? It is also laundry day, so I won't lie. It's laundry day. So, Bank of Canada announced today that they are $543 billion in the hole, and they are collapsing as the Canadian dollar sinks to an all-time low. Yep, I reported on that yesterday before my internet went down, right? The idea that it's the first time in the history of the Bank of Canada, the first time in the history of the Bank of Canada that they're losing money. And it's because of the project of extraction that the Bank of Canada is selling itself to private investors. It's privatizing itself. That's how it's losing money. Because the Bank of Canada should never lose money. Like, it's not a business, right? Like, that's the thing that I think people seem to think about government. They think that the best way to run government is by running it like a business. And it fails on the face of it because it's not a business. You can't fire citizens, right? Like, the Bank of Canada doesn't need to make profits. That's not what it does. That's not how it functions. That's not its purpose. That's not its role in the society, right? The Bank of Canada literally creates money and maintains the money supply. That's literally its job. And the idea that it's quote-unquote losing money is basically it admitting that it printed a bunch of money and handed it to the billionaires for nothing in return. It's under this Tiff Macklem loser, the Bank of Canada is essentially dismantling itself and ceding its authority and ceding its power to the oligarchy. Right? And so eventually it will only be the oligarchy that will be able to make financial decisions in the country. And should a group come into power saying, hey, the Bank of Canada can print money and do what it wants, it doesn't need permission from the capitalist class, then the capitalists will hold us hostage and destroy the civil society as they're doing. Right? Like, I mean, these people are rapists and pedophiles. They don't give a shit about us. Like, they don't care about us at all. Like, they'll absolutely destroy the country in order to get an extra $10 in their bank account. Like, they don't care. Yeah, haven't they stolen enough from the working class to be okay? No. I think Prodigal Seagull is nailing it. They want their money. They want it back. They just want it all. They don't understand anything other than more, right? They don't understand that society is like a balancing act. They don't understand principles of egalitarianism. They don't even understand the basics of, like, if you don't pay a decent wage to your citizens, then your citizens won't have enough money to buy your shit, right? Like, they don't understand that, nor do they care, right? Literally what these people are doing, and you can see it, like, this isn't me making anything up, you can see them doing this, is that they're taking the wealth that we've given them, and they're going and buying islands with it, and erecting, like, pedophile slave sex rings, right? Or they're doing what Bill Gates is doing, which is buying up all the farmland and then creating famines, like he's doing in Africa, right? And we're just watching him do it. Or people like fucking Elon Musk, who are literally just making death chips and cars that crash into people so that he can sit atop this pile of wealth that he insists he doesn't use. Like, it's so fucking baby-brained. And it's manic. It's just crazed and manic at some point. And there's a reason why people are responding the way that they're responding, right? There's a reason why the society is becoming just absurd and is incapable of grappling with itself emotionally. There's a reason for it. It's because nothing makes sense anymore. No, like, for real, when I was growing up and climate change was an issue, let's just use the climate change thing, right? I always assumed that people would want to stop that. I always just assumed that growing up. Just like, yeah, it's not that we're attempting to do it. It's that we've accidentally done this. Just we're discovering something, and now we're accidentally figuring it out, or we're figuring it out through study, and now that we're figuring it out, we're going to make the right decisions and move forward in a rational, insane way, and we're not. We're simply not. Like, we're actively deciding to destroy the species for paper we print. Like, that's what we're doing. And so, at this stage in the game, what's left? What's left to do? How do you react to it anymore? Right? Because the people who rule us are obviously psychopaths. Like, obviously psychopaths. Like, they're completely disinterested in actually doing anything to help anyone. Right? And the destruction of the ecosystem and the destruction of the species and the destruction of the civil society is literally being done for digital money on screens that we create from nothing in the first place. Like, if that's not a death cult, I don't know what is, guys. And I think it's completely normal for people to just be reacting to it with this overt, overwhelming absurdism. Because what else is there? Like, what else is there? Right? Like, how do you survive it? How do you get through this? And I know my position is that I'm just going to tell the truth about it until I can't. But I think there are a lot of people in the world who can't do that. And that the ability to articulate the horror that we're seeing it is itself an ability. Is something that not everybody can do. And so that energy comes out, and it just comes out in this nauseating absurdism. Like, it's just where we're at, and I don't see it getting any better. I really. Yeah, for the teens in my family, taking a job early has been very rewarding, not financially, but for the work ethic, it gives them a chance to point out capitalism sucks. Yeah, like go work in capitalism for a year. Like, be a worker, not an owner. And you find out real fast. Yeah, they won't stop till they have it all. Yeah, fun idea. Use SpongeBob to explain capitalism. I mean, SpongeBob is explicitly anti-capitalist. Like, in an obvious way. Like, there's literally episodes where like, Squidward, does a communist overthrow. Like, it's explicitly anti-capitalist. It's just that it's not... It treats its protagonist, SpongeBob SquarePants, as the everyman, which means that he's a dupe, right? And like, SpongeBob's a nice guy, like, we all love SpongeBob, but he's a total dupe. He's in love with his slavery. He loves being a fry cook, right? For a capitalist who literally would sell him for a penny, and has on several occasions. And the person who we're all supposed to be like, oh, what an idiot, is Squidward, who... near as I can tell, is the only one that's actually got a brain in his head. Like, so SpongeBob SquarePants is explicitly anti-capitalist. Like, watch one episode of it. It's impossible to miss. Like, it's impossible to miss. Grinning says the U.S. Senate just crammed down the agreement down the throat of all workers. Yeah, I don't believe in any deity, but I'm praying for a wildcat strike. Yeah, they should do a wildcat strike, or as I like to call it, a strike. Like, I don't know why we're allowing this language, this idea that, like, oh, it's an illegal strike. Shut up. Like, what? These loser owners are just trying to convince dumb, gullible morons that the people who are striking are doing something wrong. Like, we should all be on strike. Everybody should be on strike. We should be organizing a general strike across the board. Like, what, here in Ontario, when they threatened to do a general strike, and then Doug Ford stepped down from it, although it gained Koopy like almost nothing, like a 4% increase, what would he fucking do? They should have just done it. They should have just done the general strike and just been like, fuck you. And I don't know why we're still all going to work. I don't understand this. But I think it's just like a deer caught in a headlight. Like, we don't know what to do, and the CIA and the death cult itself is doing everything it can to keep us disorganized. Sigma, good to see you. I am back. Good to see you, bud. Cotton, good to see you. Yeah, I'm now here, which means the feds are on high alert. Yeah, you bet. Sigma says, anyway, like from yesterday, I'm wanting to learn more about politics and can you explain the actual definition of capitalism and communism in a short summary? My suggestion is just read the Communist Manifesto. That the central thing, if you don't understand this, then you do not understand capitalism, is that capitalism has a central antagonism, that there is a class, there are classes of citizens. One class owns everything, the land, the machinery, right? What's called the means of production, the buildings, right? They own all of that by the legal system, right? So by the code of laws that they erected when they took power through force, they own everything, right? And then there's the people who do all the work. What Marx calls the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie being the owners, and the proletariat being the workers, right? I just call them the owned and the owners, right? Like, there's no reason to have these fancy definitions and all this kind of stuff. Like, there are owners and there are owned, and if you're not an owner, then you're owned. And the only reason that we don't talk this way is because it hurts. It hurts to believe and to accept that you're just owned. You're just a serf. You're just a piece of property to these people. And as long as that dynamic exists, the country is always going to be at war with itself. That what benefits the owners does not benefit the owned. You can see that in the rail strike that's happening right now, right? What benefits the owners does not benefit the owned, and what benefits the owned does not benefit the owners. And so it puts them in perpetual war with each other, and you can't build a society that way. You simply cannot build a society that way. And so the goal of communism is to eliminate that class dynamic, is to eliminate what I like to say is merge the two classes, right? That traditionally communists have said we need to eliminate the bourgeoisie, the owners, right? But I prefer to say we need to merge them and make them the same thing. That the workers own the means of production and become their own owners, right? Like, that's essentially what the goal is. And that's the goal of communism, is to ensure that the government apparatus as well as the means of production are in the same hands, which is the hands of the workers. That the people who do the work should receive the fruits of the labor. And capitalists and capitalist apologists like to pretend like what this means is, my Uncle Joe works in his hot dog stand and he owns it, and so capitalism is good. Yeah. Like, we're talking about fucking Warren Buffett. We're talking about people who literally, like, don't know where these buildings are. Like, they literally are just buying stock and are making bets. And the whole idea of the stock market, in my view, is just this perverted aberration. Just the idea that, like, people can just buy and sell shit because rich people feelings will make line go up. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, I hope that's a short, but really, Sigma, like, just go find the audiobook. Like, go on YouTube. Like, it's fucking everywhere. You gotta, at this point, you gotta, like, try to not encounter the Communist Manifesto. And the Communist Manifesto stands up as it's like a fucking pamphlet. Like, it's easy. Yeah, Bank of Canada are just doing what the global financial cartels said they must do. Yeah. Why would Parliament give the power to create interest-free cash to a foreign entity that will charge compound interest to the point of bankruptcy? Yeah. Yeah, we avoided joining the cartel until Trudeau Sr. sold us out in 1974. I mean, it's a project, right? That the upper class has been, like, it's not just Trudeau. Like, it's Mulroney, Thatcher, Reagan, like, and then basically every Western leader ever since has been involved in this project of extraction and abandonment. And now we're just at the abandonment phase. Prodigal Seagull. Yeah, Sigma. I'm happy, man. I'm happy to say all that because to me that's central. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand capitalism. Period. And most capitalists I've met don't know what capitalism actually is and don't understand the conversation. Yeah, as you grow older, you realize that Squidward was in the right and is one of the most relatable. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Like, what does Squidward want to spend all his time doing? What is Squidward like? What does he want to do? He wants to pursue his passions. He wants to pursue his music. He wants to pursue painting. He wants to pursue art. Right? Squidward is an artist, and of course, when he's standing at a cache serving dim-witted idiots who are literally eating, they're fish eating fish, right? Like of course he's sitting there being like, "Arr," right? My comic would come in handy right now. Still in Discord General. Thank you, Anemone. Always good. Billy Mays. So what if the worker wants to become the owner of the same market? Is it harder or easier to become a business owner in communist nations? I mean, you have to recalibrate what it means to be a business owner. Like if your goal is to own a business and have slaves, then that's not going to fly, right? So if you want to just own a company, sit in an office somewhere, dictate terms, tell people what's what, too fucking bad, like too fucking bad. But if you want to actually like organize with people and work collaboratively and actually treat people like peers and equals, then you're going to get somewhere, right? Because it's a cooperative, it's a collaborative, right? You work together. But if your goal of what a quote unquote business is that you're God and everyone sucks your cock, then go get fucked. Yeah, Squidward is a sad, misunderstood soul. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Like, which isn't to talk shit about SpongeBob. I think SpongeBob is an interesting figure, right? That he's in an odd kind of way. He tells us that you can live a happy and contented life in a capitalist system. That his friend Patrick is obviously mentally handicapped, right? But SpongeBob doesn't seem to care and seems to just live a very peaceful and lovely kind of a life, even if it is a bit self-serving and tends to trot on the toes of people who are introverted, like let's say Squidward, right? So like SpongeBob SquarePants is an interesting show because SpongeBob is a flawed individual, right? He's a flawed person, and but you love him anyway, and it's like Patrick is flawed as flawed can be, but you love him anyway. Right? Because I think it's important for us to love people who have flaws, and to accept and the greatest characters in, like, my biggest complaint about modern movies today is that nobody's flawed. Like nobody, like, I always bring it up. Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy. Like, what's her flaw? What's Rey's fatal flaw? What's the thing that she's got to overcome in order to become a better person and become a stronger Jedi or whatever? It's fucking nothing. She's basically perfect, right? So she's not really a person, and so that's why you don't really relate with her, and that's why she doesn't make any sense, because she's not a person. And what Disney always will do when you bring this kind of stuff up is like, oh well, you're just a misogynist. It's like, no, you fucking idiot. Like, I've watched a lot of cinema where there's female protagonists, and they female protagonists have flaws, right? Because that's what characters have to have. They have to have flaws. And but if you just want to view everything through this dim lens of identity politics, then you're not really capable of creating art, and that's just the truth of it. Always good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Send it around. Let everybody know. Here's a great tweet from Samuel Sing Yang Wee. Police killed at least 1,054 people through November 27th, 2022. Police are killing people at higher rates in 2022 than any year on record in the United States. Any year on record. Like, And if you're in the YouTube chat, you can see there's a map here where every single killing has been pinpointed on the map of America, right? Like we are obviously descending into a civil war. It's right in front of your face, and we're obviously collapsing into just a fascist police state where police killings are just ramping up. And the reason why police killings are ramping up is because people are getting more and more desperate and doing stupider and stupider things. Not to mention the simple just like suicide by cop that is prevalent and does happen. Like, people are becoming more and more desperate, and the project of abandonment is having consequences. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. That as institutional support is removed from the vast majority of the society, or if it was never there in the first place, it's just increasingly heightened. And then the capitalist power structure itself, which is supposed to be the power structure that comes in when the state won't, right? That's always the argument. That, well, if the state doesn't come in, then there's a business opportunity there. But the hard reality that the capitalists will never say is that they're never going to move into an area that doesn't have any money, right? So if there's a neighborhood that's completely poor and has no money, no capitalist is going to open a business there because there's no reason to do it. There's no money there. And so you have just these, and it used to be pockets. It used to be pockets of America. But now it's just steadily becoming America. That the only places that are still able to maintain the illusion of civility and the illusion of civilization are the cities. And so you have these city centers of people who still think that they live in a liberal democracy when it's patently clear to everybody else that this is a fascist state owned by oligarchs. It's obvious now. Like, I used to say that it's getting obvious, but it's obvious now, right? And with this kind of insane hopelessness that's in front of us, of course suicide rates are up. Of course people are desperate. Of course people are looking for a way out of the situation. Even the billionaire class is attempting to pursue a type of escapism, right? That instead of actually saying, okay, we've got problems, we need to solve them, how do we solve these problems? They're shooting rockets at space. They're saying, how do we get to Mars? They're trying to create neural links so that they can escape into alternate realities. They're trying to download their consciousness into robots and things like this. They're pursuing these sort of insane madman ideas, instead of just saying, okay, like, what's the problem? How do we actually solve it? Like, do you think that the $44 billion that Elon Musk spent on Twitter could have been used better? I do. Cite lesser. I love this. Liberals come in here and they think this is a checkmate move. It's kind of embarrassing. You realize that communism doesn't actually work, right? Yeah, except for all the times it does. Right? Except all the times it does. Like, I mean, take a look at what's happening in modern China, dude. Like, it's kind of an embarrassing thing that you guys do when you come in here and do this, right? Here's an easy one, right? China walk around. Just like literally watch any of these. Just pick one. Like, this is your failed communist country. Yeah, you sound like one. Like, you sound like one. You might not think you are, but you sound like one. This sort of dumb idea that communism doesn't work. Like, what are you talking about? If communism doesn't work, then why is the West spending hundreds of billions of dollars to destroy communist countries? Why, if it doesn't work, just don't let it work, right? Just don't let it work, right? So what's my opinion of free speech? What's your opinion of free speech? Are you fine with Nazis standing up and saying, let's round people up and send them to concentration camps? Is that your idea of free speech? Is that what you think free speech is? Right? The modern Western idea of what free speech is not free speech. That it's literally just let Nazis